woman from the show. That's got to be autocorrect. Dealing with that. Oh, from the shop. Yep, that was that. Cool. What's good? Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of The Newest Olympian. My name is Mike Schubert. I'm the titular Newest Olympian. I'm a 32-year-old father of one that never read the Percy Jackson books as a kid. I read them as an adult because I was on a quest to determine if this was a book series that society was sleeping on. I said yes, and now I'm seeing if society has been sleeping on the Heroes of Olympus series as well. And I'm joined today by someone who you've heard on the podcast, someone you may have seen at the live show we did recently in Phoenix, Arizona that I have to upload at some point, but it's going to be like an in-between book episode thing, so we'll figure it out. But you might know her as a part-time educator or a full-time book nerd. It's Jania Stewart. Jania, how is it going?
It is going.
I'm glad
I'm feeling
it is going.
Great. I started off my morning with yoga in the park, so I'm really feeling invigorated right now.
Incredible. I started off my morning with tending to a baby, so I'm ready to go. But I was reading these chapters at the wee hours of the morning, and they are good and they are spicy, and I'm excited to get into them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for the context of the intro, this is the first episode we will have recorded since I have had, and by I mean Kelly had, and I was also there, since
I was
we
moral
had
support.
a child. I did more than just moral support. I was like, I didn't think it was going to happen, but I was an active member in the delivery room, which I was happy to do. And I just listened to what the doctors told me to. So I didn't do nothing, but I certainly did significantly less. But I'm trying to pick up the slack by doing most of the diapers and stuff. So anyway, this is the first episode in the I am a dad era. So the first one recorded since becoming a dad. So if there's dad puns all over the place, that is why. And if the episodes have sounded a lot better, it's like that thing that happens in sports. People have dads, people have kids, and then boom, they get better at the sport. And I will say these Heroes of Olympus episodes have been fire. They've been good. And I know this one, even before recording, is going to be a banger because you are here. So
thank you.
Oh, of course. Let's get that context in of your Heroes of Olympus history, though. What is your history with the Heroes of Olympus books?
Yeah, so I have actually read the first 3. I was listening to them via audiobook, and for some strange reason, they switch audiobook narrators after the first 3 books. And no shade to that man, love him, but I was like, no, I already heard the first person. I've gotten used to his voice. So I stopped reading them, and then I bought the physical copies of the book, and it wasn't until I was rereading these chapters that I was like, I have to finish this series. These are so good. So I think I might actually end up rereading just to fully immerse myself back in what was happening, because these are so good. And the PJO books are great, but these really just are another level, and I love them so much.
Yeah, I have been very much enjoying them. These 2 chapters we're about to cover were really, really solid, and I am so excited for what lies ahead. And yeah, I know the narrator thing, I think they are currently in the process of re-recording them. Mm-hmm. So I wonder, and I don't know exactly the context, I'm sure someone knows more than me, but I wonder if they've only redone the first 3 and those are the new ones. And then as you got later on, it was the old ones, which I know people have issues with. So maybe you were like too fast and you caught up to where they are.
Too furious.
Yes. Good reference, as I'm currently working on a Fast and Furious little limited release podcast thing with my buddy Eric Schneider. So yeah, it's I guess I should start teasing it. I'll tease it. I won't. We're working on a thing where like I had never seen them, and he's a super fan, and we just like marathoned all of them in a very short span of time.
I love
So we're gonna do like a limited release, kind of like not an ongoing podcast, just like we recorded an episode for every movie thing. So stay tuned for that.
So
everybody.
exciting!
It's gonna be fun. We've been finally getting around to editing it. We recorded it a while ago, but anyway, this is a Percy Jackson podcast. We're here to talk about Percy Jackson.
And speaking of things happening in a too fast, too furious way.
Oh my God. You want to talk, like, I can't not think of the Fast and Furious franchise when we have the Leo chapters, especially these, where the entire thing basically takes place in a machine shop. Come on.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
I'm just imagining his mom as Letty Ortiz, Michelle Rodriguez from Fast and Furious. Like,
yes.
that's all I see.
Family.
Family. Yes. So we're here with chapter 11 to start. Chapter 11 is also called Leo, but as we have been doing on the newest Olympian episodes for Heroes of Olympus, by the end of the chapter, we will come up with a quirky little name. So if you want to start trying to turn the gears and spin the wheels of what you think a fun title would be, we'll come up with one each at the end of the chapter discussion. But here we are for chapter 11. Now, it starts off where we last left our heroes. Leo was here when Piper got claimed by Aphrodite, and she had her big fancy schmancy makeover. So the first line is in reference to that. It says, quote, Leo didn't stick around after Piper turned beautiful. Sure, it was amazing and all. She's got makeup. It's a miracle. But Leo had problems to deal with. He ducked out of the amphitheater and ran into the darkness, wondering what he'd gotten himself into. Just incredible. I think the opening lines are so good, but the Leo ones, just Leo narrator is really strong.
Oh, yeah. And all I could imagine is like all of a sudden Fenti beauty products just float from the sky and like just land on her. And they're all just opening of their own accord. And it's like concealer, highlight, lip gloss, perfection. And it's just like, I love how once you become an Aphrodite, you get yesified. Like once you become... Once she decides to claim you, she's like, okay, fine, I'll put a filter over you.
Yeah, if I'm going to put my name on you, you got to be hot. You can't be caught dead wearing what you're wearing and looking how you're looking if you're going to go around representing my cabin. You're not going to sully my good Aphrodite name. Here's some Fenty beauty products brought to you by Rihanna.
I also love this too, because in the last series, we got like the very loosest sense of what it's like to be a child of Aphrodite. But one of the things I love about this book is like you're following 3 different people who are having like realizing that they belong to different gods. And we haven't met anyone yet who was like, I am in the process of figuring out Aphrodite is my mom. And so I feel like you really get a good sense of what kind of powers with Piper. And it's so cool. I really love the series so much for that reason. You just start to kind of peel back the layers a little bit.
Yeah, what's fun is our 3 new heroes now have been claimed by Hephaestus and Zeus/Jupiter and Aphrodite. And we only knew a little bit about 2 of them. And even with Zeus as well, because yeah, we had Thalia, but like I feel like her personality was more the hunters as opposed to being a child of Zeus, aside from her anti-dad angst. So I think it's going to be fun.
She was kind of trying to escape that, whereas we're seeing someone who doesn't actually remember that at all.
Right. So it is fun. I like it a lot. So Leo is in disbelief that he willingly volunteered for this quest over stronger, more qualified demigods. And we then get to an absurd realization from Leo that I think tracks. He is convinced that Tia Kaida, his old babysitter from back in the day, wearing a black dress and a shawl, as she was described, is Hera, because that's how Hera/Juno was described by our other 2 friends. And I did not draw that connection, so I'm glad he pointed that out. So he's convinced that the mother of the gods was his evil babysitter. And if that's true, that's wild. And even if it's false, that's still a cool thing for him to be thinking. And what's extra interesting on top of all of this is that it would mean Hera would have a connection to all 3 of the main heroes, because she had this discussion with Piper. She seems to have some sort of history with Jason, and now she might have a history with Leo as well. So very Hera-centric, which is very interesting.
And that's so cool to me, because we got a lot of the big 3 in the last series. It was very like Hades, Poseidon, Zeus, everyone else is a little bit of an afterthought. And I love this too, because Hera, just in terms of pop culture and just what generally is known about her, not the most child-friendly person. And I was like, this lady's got to be the worst babysitter of all time.
Well, we will see.
Got to be the worst.
Her track record, not great. I'm not calling over Tia Kaida to watch my little one. That's for damn
not even a little bit.
No. So Leo tries to not think about his childhood, but thankfully, for the purposes of being a book and catching the reader up to speed, he does, and he dives into his past with Tia Kaida. So he recalls the first time that she tried to kill him. It was at age 2. He clarifies before getting into any of this that she's not his actual aunt, which is what Tia means. It's just a generic Tia, like she's just someone in the community that watches over the kids. So his mom was at the shop, and Tia Kaida said, let's set you down for a nap. Let's see if you are my brave little hero, eh? And I was wondering as I was reading this, if this is going to be this thing where like she's trying to see if he is my wild theory is that Jason is like reincarnated from like an old guy from way back in time. So I was wondering if she was like going around from person to person trying to see if they are Jason. But as it goes on, I think it's kind of clear what she's looking for here. But that was my thought at the time of reading. What she does is she puts him to bed for this nap, but it's not a bed. It's a bed. Lobster. No, so it's a lit fireplace, which I would say.
A bed of coals.
Not ideal. I wouldn't call myself a parenting expert yet, but I would not put them down in a fire. I would go with a bassinet.
I think that's like parenting rule number 1. Don't put your kids in the fireplace.
Yeah. I mean, look, they got to tell you some of the very simple stuff. Like before leaving the hospital, we had to watch like a don't shake your baby video. It feels like it should be parenting 101, but like, look, man, sometimes holding a screaming baby, not fun. Your brain cannot be working at full cylinder, especially when you are at 0 sleep. So she puts him to bed in a lit fireplace. Not great. And then she sings to him in a language that he can tell is neither English nor Spanish. And then his mom comes home just in time, yelling, "How could you?" And I realized that this would track for Hera because Hera is Hephaestus's mom and she doesn't like Hephaestus. So in theory, she wouldn't like Hephaestus's wives. So I would imagine, or I guess not wives, they're not married, Hephaestus's baby mamas. So it would make sense that she would be kind of like an evil mother-in-law type to Leo's mom. So this would track with his thought that she's Hera.
I also feel like because this is not like one of Zeus's kids, immediately she's like, I don't like you, but I don't hate you.
Yeah.
I don't like you, so I am going to put you to sleep on this fireplace. But it's because I know you're immune to fire.
Right.
Would I do the same if you weren't? Yes. But
I think Leo, even as the narrator, says something like, you could tell that she was testing this hero theory, but also would have been completely unfazed by him dying. So it's very much like she's looking at this. I don't know if objectively is the right way, but just like there's no sort of emotion behind anything. It is just purely like, I need to see if this is the person I'm looking for. And if they die, so be it. It just means they're not the person I'm looking for.
yes.
Leo found it puzzling that Kaida was never arrested or banished from the home, and she kept popping up over the years. And Kaida does translate to clever, so maybe that's why. But at age 3, we get another memory. She let him play with knives because apparently he needed to learn his blades early if he were to be her hero someday. At age 4, she found a rattlesnake and gave him a stick to poke it with, wanted him to prove why the fates chose him. But Leo didn't want to do this. The snake didn't seem like it wanted to be a part of this either, Leo thinking it gave Kaida a look like, are you nuts, lady? And then nothing really happened.
This just felt like the visual of like the rattlesnake and this little toddler having a stare down and the snake being like, I know I'm a rattlesnake, but this is a lot even for me. I have a line. I'm not just any old snake, okay? I have morals.
Look, I will convince Eve to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, but I will not fight a baby. That's a step too far.
He can't even chase me, really. Like,
no, it's not even going to be a fun fight. It's going to be too easy. I don't want to play this game on easy mode. No, give me a challenge. This stick, what's this stick going to do? So the final babysitting memory was at age 5 when Kaida bought him crayons and paper. Leo drew a picture of this ornate boat that he had seen when he was in the flames, like this flying boat of his dreams. And the wind took it from him before he could sign it like he was taught to do. Leo was upset. Kaida was disappointed, telling him that it isn't time yet, but that he will have his quest someday. She said until then, he would have to endure sorrows because that's how heroes are formed. She then asks for him to make a fire. He does, and his mom rushes outside to see him sitting in the middle of a fire. Again, not ideal. And then this is when I realized, okay, maybe she doesn't think he's Jason, but she knows that he is the important person in this sort of prophecy situation, could be linked to the whole thing of him being the first fire-powered demigod in hundreds of years, like that one kid from Cabin 9 said.
Nice.
So Leo has flaming hands while this was going on, and his flaming hands made imprints on the apartment complex's picnic table, which stayed there and baffled residents for years to come.
That would be so weird to me if I lived in an apartment complex And every time I walked past the little picnic table, I just saw very small handprints clearly burned into the lore, the local urban myths that must have spawned amongst the kids in this apartment complex.
Yep. Especially because they say it's a wooden picnic table. So it's not like it's concrete or something where handprints are more commonly found. It is what happened that you could imprint hands here without destroying the wood. Like, it's a super strange situation. I agree.
Yeah.
So now, having done this little mental recap, Leo is 100% convinced that Tia Kiida is Hera. And I'm thinking, okay, yes, that could be true. But also she could be the mistress, or Hera could still be the mistress, which is a possibility I'm still floating around out there. So I still don't really know what's going on. It's this hard thing of like, can we trust Leo when he thinks things are true? I think I'm still trying to get over reading the Harry Potter books where anytime Harry or Ron thought someone was guilty of something, you could immediately write it off as not being the actual person who is guilty. So I don't know. I'll have to see if these are more trustworthy folk.
I think these are very fair thoughts to have.
Yes.
The people, especially the gods in the story, are hard to trust and they're hard to read. Like, you don't know if they're trying to help you. They're usually not, but like, you don't know if they're trying to help you. You don't know if they're trying to sabotage you. You really just don't know. The biggest indicator, I think, in the overarching Percy Jackson universe is food. If they're offering you food, it's a trap.
Oh, yeah. You got to get out of there. Cheeseburgers, donuts, milkshakes.
Yeah, if they're not offering you food, I think it's safe to say that you could give them an inch and see what happens.
Yeah, you can give him a little bit. Leo then connects the same dots that I did, that Tia Kiida would be his grandmother, and that also makes him wonder, like I was wondering, if that means his mom knew all along what was going on. So Leo and I are very much on the same wavelength, which I appreciate. He recalls part of what happened after Kaida's last visit, his mom saying that she cannot come back again. And I'm wondering if there's some sort of rule where it's like, oh, once he turns 5, you can't meddle, or she could only come a certain amount of times. Like, I feel like we are going to learn more about the relationship that's going on here, probably whenever Leo meets Hephaestus. I feel like he could explain a little bit more, but this kind of felt like let me just earmark this for later, because it feels like something specific is at play.
I also wondered how often these visits were happening, because he says at 2, she did this. At 3, she did this. So I'm like, is this like a once a year kind of a thing?
Oh, yeah, it's an annual thing on Tia Kiida Day. She comes in and wrecks shop.
And she just stays, like, she waits until the day that his mom is scheduled for like a double shift at the mechanic shop.
It's like the Purge. Once a year, Hera can come down and try to murder your baby, and you just have to let it happen.
Because she's Hera, and if you don't, she'll turn you into a cow and make a fly haunt you. So
Yep, correct. Yes, you have to let her maybe kill your baby, or the baby will become a cow, and then you will have a cow baby. Now, despite Leo's mom having a degree in mechanical engineering, which, as someone with a degree in mechanical engineering, I was very excited about, no one would hire her. So she ended up in a machine shop. And that seems ridiculous to me, but
I had the same thought. I was like, what do you mean no one hired a mechanic? The only thought that I had is that maybe the degree she got did not take place in the US and maybe it took place somewhere else. And maybe they were like, we can't trust this, because that is something that happens when people immigrate to another country. If they went to school in another country, they might not accept like that country's degree as valid enough. And I wonder if maybe it was that kind of a thing.
Yeah, she's also a woman of color.
There's that.
That being, I don't know. You would think that, like, if she's qualified, whatever, like, there's things, but I think it's upsetting. Whatever led to it, it is upsetting that she couldn't get a job anywhere. And she ended up in a machine shop. She would speak to Leo in both English and Spanish interchangeably, and even taught him Morse code so they could discreetly pass short messages back and forth to each other. She told Leo that she didn't care what Kiida had to say about the fates and prophecies. He was still her baby.
Very Sally Jackson coded.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
She went to the Sally Jackson School of Motherhood right there.
Yeah, and that's the problem, is that she got her mechanical engineering degree there, and certain employers are like, what is this? How do you have a mechanical engineering degree from a school of motherhood? So she told Leo that fire is a tool, but it's more dangerous than most. She explained that Leo didn't know his limits yet, so she asked him to promise her that he would stop using the fire until he met his father. Leo had heard that he would meet his dad all his life. He never got any answers to questions about it. He never saw pictures of him, but his mom spoke of him like he had just stepped out and would return at any minute. And the next few years were happy ones, rarely featuring Leo thinking of Kiida, but sometimes featuring him dreaming of this flying boat. Then things turned sour when he turned 8. At this age, he spent most of his free time at the machine shop. He could use the machines and had a great grasp on measuring and math and thinking in 3 dimensions just like his mom did. And one night, they were staying late in the shop because his mom was working on a drill bit design that she was hoping to patent and then launch her big break. And I really hope that this machine shop doesn't have one of those, oh, hey, if you come up with a cool idea at the company, we actually own the idea. It feels more like a tech firm thing as opposed to a machine shop. So hopefully that's okay. But I would hope we don't have, the Mark Zuckerberg of machine shops swooping in and going, actually, this drill bit is brought to you by Meta.
Yeah.
So I knew at this point, though, that we're going to get the tragic fire story. So I knew and was geared up for sadness. Now, in the machine shop, Leo passed her supplies and cracked jokes while she worked, causing his mom to say that his father would be proud. And I'm aware that this is going to get sad. And I'm sure that this is just a she has no other options scenario. There's clearly no other person to watch Leo. But is a machine shop the safest place for an 8-year-old? It feels like it's not a smart idea.
And this is what makes me feel like she had to have known the extent of who he was, because the only way she would feel comfortable bringing him around is if she knows he's a child of Hephaestus. He's fine. He'll figure it out.
Oh, that's a good point. I was thinking of it on the reverse of she wouldn't feel safe leaving him under the babysitting watch of a normal mortal that doesn't know what's going on, because if he starts burning stuff.
Yeah, it could totally be both. But I think because she has the context of who he is, which is why she tells him, be careful with your fire, as opposed to he starts fires randomly and I just don't know how he does it. She seems to have some idea that he can control fire or is associated with fire enough that it could be dangerous if he's not taught to be mindful about it.
Yeah.
So I feel like she knew a little something. And that's why I say I feel like her and Sally Jackson feel very parallel to me.
She is doing a better job than the Pars in The Incredibles, where they just leave Jack with that poor innocent babysitter who is just so stressed all the time, which is very funny for the movie, but logistically, that is
horrifying.
A nightmare for that babysitter to deal with. So yeah, I guess it should be fine. I guess though I would probably, I don't know, maybe set up a little play area in a safer part of the machine shop. When I was an engineer, there were certain parts of the plant that I worked at where it was just kind of taped off areas where nothing bad could happen. There were the parts that you didn't need to necessarily have steel-toed boots, hard hat, fire-resistant clothes, all that kind of stuff. You would hope that you could maybe set up a Little Tykes hoop and stuff over there. It's just something.
I'm just picturing a playpen, but instead of regular toys, it's a literal wrench and some bolts.
It's all
some
steampunk. Yeah, it's a Little Tykes hoop, but it's made out of metal. Yeah. It's, Lincoln Logs, but they're all rebar. Yeah. So their general process when Leo's mom is working late is that they have to follow this whole procedure when they leave for locking doors behind them and all this kind of stuff. So they're doing that. And just as they are about to exit, Leo's mom realizes that she left her keys behind and tells Leo to wait here as she goes back in. I can kind of understand the bringing him to the machine shop, but wait here as I go back in? Are you kidding me? Maybe I'll feel differently when my daughter's 8 years old, but I can't imagine. I don't even feel safe enough going to the bathroom when I'm the only person watching her. I'm peeing in record speeds the past couple of weeks. In a machine shop, I'm going to go in and get my keys? No.
Yeah, and I also want to point out that she says, that's funny, I know I had them.
Right.
I feel like that line does such a good job of letting you know this isn't just a normal oh, I forgot something, I'll be right back. Immediately something is afoot, something is amiss. She's saying, I know I had them on me. And it's just it felt like the stepping on a butterfly effect kind of a thing, where this one thing, something happens and now we have a whole different set of circumstances.
Yeah, I immediately thought that as well. It just makes me upset that Leo's mom didn't think that initially also. Because if she knows that she's got weird Greek folk meddling and Hera coming through. I guess maybe she was just so, maybe we'll learn whatever the situation is. And there was something where she was so sure that like Hera's not coming back, and whoever this other person that comes through is, maybe that just was not on her radar anymore. You know, it had been 3 years since Hera's last visit. Maybe nothing weird happened and she was like, we're good, we're past it. But yeah, you would hope that she would be a little more on top of things, but also it's a book and she needs to die. So
that's true. I also wonder if she knew about the whole monsters chase you the older you get as a demigod thing. Like, I wonder if maybe like she knew he was a demigod, but didn't know like in the way that Sally knew, because Poseidon was like, if something happens, take him to camp,
Right.
whatever the hell. And he's like, take him to this camp. Whereas she just knows, my child's son is Hephaestus. He's nobody big and important. Who's going to come after Leo? You know? And I wonder if it was that kind of a thing. Like, he's not even the most important of the thing. So like, why would I expect danger from anyone else?
Yeah, and maybe she doesn't want to be a helicopter parent, but I just kind of feel like if you've got this particular situation,
take that kid with you. Take that kid with you.
If there was ever a justification of being a helicopter parent, it's when your son is a demigod who can make fire spark and people try to kill him at least once a year.
At least.
So I feel like you would be justified kind of hovering. But anyway.
A leash child. Maybe Leo needed a leash so she could just carry him around all the time.
Yeah, made out of metal, of course. So then narrator Leo says, quote, she gave him one more smile, the last one he'd ever get, and she went back into the warehouse. Oh, just crushing. Like, we all know what's happening, but that just makes it even harder. So the interior door slammed shut. The exterior door locked itself. So Leo started to panic. He called out for his mom. He tapped codes in Morse code, asking if she was okay. And then a voice said, she can't hear you. Leo turns and he thinks it's Tia Kaida calling her by name, but the person said, I am not your guardian, merely a family resemblance. So my initial thought is that this is the mistress. And I had a theory from a previous episode, because I don't know who the mistress is, that maybe it's this Hera-Juno split thing. Because what we learned from Clovis was that the Roman personalities are still a part of the gods, so you can't just like write them off as different names. And I was wondering, maybe Juno was so different from Hera that there's actually a separate Hera and Juno, as opposed to just Hephaestus, Vulcan being the two ways we refer to the one god.
That is a thought.
So maybe that theory of mine isn't super wild. Yeah, thanks for keeping the trapdoor intact. Now, another thing that I realized, though, is that the mistress could just be a different godlike figure, and this line about familial resemblance doesn't really mean much because everybody's related, so it doesn't narrow it down at all. You know, Cyclopes are, Poseidon got busy with nature, so anything can be related. You know, like, it doesn't mean anything.
Those horses, those are your brothers.
Yeah, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that she looks like her, but because Leo thought that makes me think that maybe my Hera-Juno thing isn't so wild. So Leo asked this person where his mom is, and this woman appreciated Leo's loyalty to his mother and revealed that she has children too. She has heard that he will fight them someday, and he will prevent them from waking her, so she cannot allow that. Still feels very mistressy, but I'm trying to figure out who is that mistress. Leo said he had no idea who she is and doesn't want to fight, and she called that a wise choice. Then Leo realized that she was asleep behind her veil, and her clothes were made out of earth, not cloth. And now I'm thinking, ooh, is this Gaia? Because I've already been rumbling and wondering, because they say something about like raise the earthly king or whatever, and that feels very Oranos. And I know Gaia and Oranos were together. They were the earth and the sky, and it said beware the earth in the prophecy. So maybe the mistress is actually Gaia, but I wonder why the mistress would be her name, because I think she legit like was the wife or spouse or whatever of Oranos. Like, it wasn't like a fling of sorts, but with the earth stuff, that felt very Gaia.
I do wonder if the term mistress is not the way that we know that to mean now, but mistress in the feminine form of a master.
Oh, that's good. I like that. Thank you for bringing up that point. Yeah, that would make way more sense.
And that is all I will say.
Yeah, no, that is good. I like that. That's a good thought, especially because based on my very limited knowledge of Gaia and Oranos and stuff, my understanding, it's Gaia came first and then created Oranos.
Yeah.
So for her to be mistress a la female wording of master, that would make more sense if like she was actually in charge. Like Urano still could be coming back, but Gaia could be actually in charge. Yeah.
I think what's also really interesting, like I just have to get into how the description of her is like in this moment. So her eyes are closed and her clothing appears to be made out of black dirt that's churning and shifting, and her pale sleeping face is barely visible behind a curtain of dust, and he had this horrible sense that she just rose from the grave. It's gotta be wild to hear someone speaking to you in like a sleepy voice, and like they're saying, I'm going to kill your mom. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's asleep. Her eyes aren't even open. This is just light work. This is light work.
Right. Yeah. That doesn't bode well that she can still do a whole lot while being asleep. And I think Leo has a thought of that at one point of like, oh, if this is what she was doing while she was asleep, I wouldn't want to see what happens when she was awake. So I think that totally makes sense. And yeah, very scary. So yeah. Okay. So this woman continues, I cannot destroy you yet. The fates will not allow it, but they do not protect your mother, and they cannot stop me from breaking your spirit. Remember this night, little hero, when they ask you to oppose me. And that's intimidating as all heck. Very foreboding.
Deeply. I got chills reading that. I was like, oh my gosh. Like, she's literally saying, if this could be you, it will be you. But I literally can't touch you. So I'm going for your mom, because that's the next best thing. That's the best I can do.
Yeah. Now, I also at this point want to reread every mention of Gaia in the Percy Jackson books leading up to this, just to kind of see, because I feel like her being asleep kind of makes sense. I know that there was mentions of Gaia when Percy fought that dude in Battle of the Labyrinth with the wave teeth and stuff. Like, sand reformed him or whatever, because he was a child of Gaia. So I am very interested to see.
They're very light on mentions of anything beyond that first ring, because I think people tend to forget overall with Greek mythology, like Zeus is kind of the grandson of the previous, because Zeus's dad, was doing his thing, but that guy killed his dad. And so like, that's kind of the first tier. We kind of forget that we have these older, more ancient, like an entire pantheon of individuals, creatures that predate the gods themselves that we know in this book. So I thought it's an interesting thought, because it's not something you can easily identify who this person is. Who could this be?
Right. And it's funny to just like think of the leveling up, because I feel like with Percy Jackson, that's why I was thinking Ouranos, because bad guy in the last series was Kronos. And it's like, all right, who's the step above that? Well, it's Ouranos / maybe Gaia now. And it's also funny because I have been playing Hades 2, the video game, on early access. We're recording this on May 18th. I had to find a way to like get Windows to run on my Mac so that I could do it. And I found a way, and I've been very much enjoying it. And in that one, I think this is obvious, but just in case anyone wants to be completely spoiler free, if you've watched like no trailer or anything, skip ahead a little bit. But Kronos is the bad guy in that one. And it's funny because in the first one, Hades was the bad guy. So it's like, the Hades video games is like, okay, yeah, well, you fight Hades. Who's bigger than Hades? Kronos. And then I wonder if they make Hades 3, Hades 3s, if then you'll be fighting Ouranos and Gaia. And they just like keep leveling up. So I am very intrigued to see. And you're right. I think it's easy to forget them. And I don't know too much about them, but I'm excited to see what happens. Leo demanded that she leave his mother alone, and the woman moved forward, quote, more like an avalanche than a person. Terrifying. Slow-moving things, way scarier than fast-moving things. I guess like slow-moving with purpose. Because I would say fast-moving zombies are scarier than slow-moving zombies. But what's the horror movies that like It Follows? Doesn't that person just like walk like the whole time? That's unsettling. That's unnerving.
World War Z, they run.
Yeah.
They sprint. They're actually track stars.
Yes. So, and they're fast in I Am Legend. So I think in most cases, if you're slow with purpose, but for zombies specifically, fast zombies, way scarier.
Also, as she moves closer, it says move like an avalanche, like a dark wall of earth shifting toward him. I think it's interesting that the descriptors are all like, avalanche is just a bunch of snow that's collected. The descriptions are a bunch of particulates assembled as a giant mass, and this doesn't feel natural.
Right. It is very much a earth centric description, which leads me to Gaia. So she asked, "How will you stop me?" as she phased through a table by her body kind of like disassembling and reforming on the other side. And she looks like she's ready to do that to Leo as well to get to his mom. So Leo then turned on his firepower in his hands, and she smiled as if she had already won, because I think this was her plan all along. Leo went wild with fire and then passed out, and he woke up in an ambulance where the paramedic, who was being as nice as they could be, told him that the warehouse burned down and his mother didn't make it out. Leo's heart sank, thinking that he caused his mother's death because he lost control just as she warned him. So that's just a crushing blow. Such a crushing blow.
And to have that happen at age 8, to feel like you are responsible for the only parent you've ever known dying.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I cannot imagine.
Tough stuff.
Really tough. So then the police came to get Leo, and they weren't as nice, accusing him of locking his mother indoors and starting a fire. And I am shocked, because that sounds exactly like what the police would do. Well done, Rick Riordan, for writing accurate policemen.
Accurate police work. And I also have to wonder how much of that, this is just me putting my academic brain on, I have to wonder how much of that is because Leo is Latinx.
Ooh, yeah.
He's a lower socioeconomic situation Latinx kid. Mm-hmm. There might be some connotations to some of these fictional police officers, but I wasn't shocked in the slightest. Of course. And finding out that Leo lived in Houston, yeah, HPD did that.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Of course
yeah,
they
we'll get
did.
into that. God, yeah. One of my takes that I like to think back of, like, takes when I was younger that have aged gracefully and have aged like fine wine. And I remember after getting a ticket once for a speeding thing by Houston police for something that made no sense. Like, I was literally, maybe you would know from Houston, it was like Allen Parkway to Highway 5. You go from Allen Parkway and it's like 65 or 70 even, because it's like a toll thing and it's faster. And then you get onto Highway 5 and you don't pass any speed limit signs for like a while. And it was my first time ever doing this. And I had no idea what the speed limit was. Everyone else around me was going 60. So I was like, cool, I bet the speed limit's 60. I'm going to go 55 to be safe. Maybe it's 55. And I just like put cruise control on exactly 55. And then a cop pulled me over. He was like, "Do you know what the speed limit is?" And I was like, "No, I actively don't. I've been frantically looking for the speed limit sign." And he was like, "It's posted all along the highway." And I was like, "I have not passed one. I'm looking so hard." He was like, "Well, you're doing 55 and a 45. And then I couldn't even like explain it. He gave me the ticket. And then I was supposed to go to court because I was going to argue it. I was like, I'm going to fight this thing. And my court date was during finals. I had my dad drive me like down the same path. And this was like pre me having a cell phone with a camera on it and stuff. I had a little like flip video, one of those ones that like little camera with the USB port that flipped out. Yeah. Because I made YouTube videos. And we like filmed me the whole drive. And I was like, see, we never passed that. I edited it in iMovie. And then I put it on my iPod Touch. And I went to the courthouse. And I was like, gonna show proof. And then my cop never showed up. So they threw the case out.
Nice. Oh my gosh, that reminds me. Similarly related, when I was in high school, I had to get spinal surgery. So I missed like 2 months of my junior year. And the school had my doctor's note. They knew why I was out, but somehow they lost it. And I got like a truancy officer showed up to my house and was like, "You have to come to school or like, you know, you're going to have to repeat 11th grade. And also you have to go to truancy court."
Oh my God.
And I was like, "What?" So I get all my medical documentation. I bring it to the judge and the judge looks at it and goes, "Are you serious? What a waste of time." I said, "I'm glad you think so. I thought I was going to go to jail."
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So anyway, all this did inform me when this whole thing happened in high school. I realized I was like, cops are just bullies that like didn't get real jobs. Like, this is what your high school bullies turned into.
Emphasis on that, because I found out that I think to be a cop, you only need like 6 to 8 weeks or something like that of training. Like in total, not as much as you would think.
Hey, this is Mick from the future. Real quick, just wanted to jump in to say that Genia meant to say months instead of weeks. Just wanted to make sure we had our numbers correct in the episode. Doctors go into training for like 8 years minimum. Like that should be the same if we're going to laud them.
And they have to keep taking licensing tests like all throughout their career to maintain their license.
As you should. Yeah. I remember someone being like, "Oh my God, doctors have to go to school so much." It's like, they definitely should. They're slicing up humans. They should have to go to school for a long time.
You should be in school every day of your life, actually.
Well, now that all of the people whose parents are one of the good ones, cops, have wrote me nasty emails, the neighbors told the police that they always knew something was wrong with that boy because all these neighbors suck and are Karens, apparently. But we learn that Leo's mom's name was Esperanza, which for me is just kind of funny because at Rice University, the fall formal was called Esperanza. I know that translates to hope and is like an actually common name, but just in my brain, I was like, Esperanza? I gotta ask someone to dance? Oh no. So Leo's relatives refused to take him in, which sucks. His Aunt Rosa called him a Diablo.
Yikes.
She yelled at the social workers and said, get him out of here. So then they brought him to a foster home, and then Leo would just kind of run away from foster home to foster home because anytime he ran away and went to a new home, he felt farther and farther away from the machine shop in that tragic day. And that completely makes sense.
Totally.
I can't imagine what he's going through, so I can't blame him at all for doing this because, yeah, you're going to want to bury that as much as you can.
I also think it's really interesting that when Annabeth ran away, she too was 8 years of age, out in the world on her own, running away. And Leo is running away. And also, the whole time I was reading this at first, I was like, maybe there's like a Percy-Leo comparison, but no. Leo is the Annabeth of this group.
Interesting.
Because he's the designing one. He's the, how do these things work? What are the things? And I just thought he's got to be the Annabeth of the group. And it made me wonder, the other two, obviously Jason feels so Percy-coded.
Right.
But does that mean that Piper is Grover?
Whoa. I mean, I still feel like we don't know as much about Piper. I feel like Piper is being so much of the, like, what's going on. I feel like there's just so much being thrown at Piper that I don't know exactly a lot about her individually yet, so I'm kind of holding off there. I like Jason's vibe because he does feel very Percy-coded in that he's like hero type, but
Very
personality-wise, he feels very different from Percy, which I enjoy. But that's such a good thought about Leo because you're right, like the role and the backstory makes sense, but the vibes are so different because he's cracking jokes and stuff, and Annabeth, not that at all.
No.
But yeah, I love that. That's so cool. That's such a good thought. Leo promised himself that he would never play with fire again. And now we kind of get back to the present. And Leo is almost at the woods when he imagines Tia Kaida's voice saying, "It wasn't your fault, little hero. Our enemy wakes. It's time to stop running." So this feels like, okay, we're back with Hera saying things and being positive. Leo responds, "Hera, you're not even here, are you? You're in a cage somewhere," and gets no response.
That's the worst thing you can say to this lady. This is the lady who got mad that Annabeth wouldn't accept food from her and cursed her for the rest of the year.
Aren't you like trapped or something? Aren't you like in jail?
I would not say that to this woman. I would be like, my follow-up thought would be, just kidding, just kidding.
And then stampede of cows ran over Leo, and that was the end of the chapter. Even so, Leo recognizes that Hera has been watching him his whole life, knowing that she would need him one day. And just feels like Hera probably could have done this in a more positive way as opposed to like, get in this fireplace, little boy, but whatever. So he wonders if the fates can tell the future. And I wrote in my notes, yeah, that's kind of their whole thing.
That is the first bullet point of the fates job description.
I wonder if this refrigerator could keep my food cold.
It reminds me of in Hercules, the movie, when Hades has the meeting with the fates and they say, we know everything, past, present, and future. And one of them is like, indoor plumbing is going to be so big.
Incredible. But Leo does not have to wonder about the quest. He knows that he is meant for it. Jason's prophecy warned about the earth, so Gaia. Leo knows it means dealing with that woman from the shop, who I'm thinking is Gaia. He wonders if he'll learn what the flying boat dream means. He wonders if he's going to get to meet his father. He wonders if he's going to be able to avenge his mother's death. But before any of that, he has to make good on his promise to Jason of getting him a flying ride, meaning it's dragon time. He goes into the woods alone and unarmed, which is the exact opposite of what Will Solace told him to do. And he remembers the sleeping woman saying, quote, "They cannot stop me from breaking your spirit. Remember this night, little hero, when they ask you to oppose me." And then in response, he says, "Believe me, lady, I remember. And whoever you are, I'm going to face plant you hard, Leo style." And up until this point,
I love him. I love him with my entire heart. I love him. He's great.
Up until this point, I was thinking, wow, this is such a cool chapter. It has done so much to make Leo more than just this goofy comic relief character. We've got this tragic backstory, and it's really intense, and Leo seems so much more complex and level-headed and thorough and all this other stuff. And then he says this quote with faceplant you hard Leo style. And I was like, okay, he has been brought back to Earth as a goober. And we've got the full Leo experience. He heads into the forest, and that's the end of chapter 11. Real quick, we're going to title it. The title that I came up with was I Look Back and Move Forward. Oh, because he did it literally and figuratively.
I think I like that. I think I like that a lot.
Cool.
I think mine might be I have a truce with a rattlesnake.
Yeah, that's good. That's
make a truce with a
yeah.
Because it's like it's one little moment in the chapter that tells you nothing at all about what the rest of this chapter involves.
Tracks for Percy.
If we're going with the Fast and the Furious route, I learned the true meaning of family.
Oh, yes. God.
Solid.
Incredible. Gosh, incredible. All right. So now we're going to take a quick break for our mid-roll break, The Lost Euro, where we'll talk about updates to the podcast and stuff, tour dates, new merch, all that kind of fun stuff. And then we will get back to discussing chapter 12. Hello and welcome to The Lost Euro Shubio edition. How is it going, everyone? Here with some updates about the podcast. First, I am excited to finally bring in the charitable efforts of the new Olympian, which I had talked about doing previously, and I said that I was going to introduce the next time we took a week off, and I don't think I've taken a week off since putting an episode out where I said that I wanted to do that because we had the TV show and I had the other interviews and all this other stuff. So I figured, okay, this is the first episode in June. It's the 6th month of the year. We're not going to let this go on any longer. I'm just going to get this in, and then maybe I make this a quarterly thing or something. But I wanted to actually get this in play because I've had this idea for a while. It's something that I was able to do with Potterless, which I really enjoyed, and I want to bring it into TNO. So the basic plan is that every now and then, let's say quarterly, because we're doing this on June 1st, if I don't have times when I'm taking weeks off regularly, we will have a part of the podcast I will talk about in the mid-roll break where I'll pick a different charitable organization and then take some of the funds that I make from, Patreon ad money, all that kind of stuff, and then donate that to the charity, talk about the organization. It's a good way for me to bring up some current events without shoehorning them into a conversation. And it doesn't have to be limited to organizations that are inspired by current events. It could be a charity that I learned about from a listener or something that I learned about because there was a particular cause I was passionate about and I wanted to find an organization that could help with that. No matter where the inspiration comes from, it gives me the opportunity to share with all of you some cool organizations out there doing great work. And the plan would be for me to do these donations either quarterly or whenever I do take breaks on the podcast, like when I normally do, such as when there are 5 Mondays in a month. And to determine how much money we'll be giving, I'm going to do something a little bit differently than what I did with Potterless, because with Potterless, I did it based on the number of people supporting us on Patreon. But I want to do something where everyone can contribute because I know not everyone's in a position to support on Patreon, and that's totally fine. So I'm thinking what we'll do is I will look at the total number of downloads that TNO has gotten over the period of time between when we last did one of these and when I'm doing it another time. And for every 1,000 downloads, I will give $1. For context, TNO gets about 250,000 downloads a month. So we'd be looking at giving $250 a month. For this first donation, I'm just going to say, let's say we started in 2024 and we have about 1.5 million downloads. So I'll be giving $1,500 to our charity this time around. World Central Kitchen. World Central Kitchen is a fantastic organization. Their slogan is that food is a universal human right. They are on the front lines providing meals in response to humanitarian, climate, and community crises. You may have seen me post about them on my personal Instagram account because I've been sharing information about Gaza there. And back in October, I had looked up organizations on the ground helping people in Gaza and Israel, and they came up as one that was doing great work. You also may have heard of them in the news when they tragically lost 7 members of their team after the IDF hit multiple of their trucks in a strike. But they've been doing great work in Gaza and the surrounding areas like Israel, Lebanon, and Egypt, getting food to people in need. And with many people in Palestine facing famine right now, it's a crucial time to help organizations like World Central Kitchen. And they also live up to their name of World Central Kitchen because they also have efforts in Ukraine and Brazil and Haiti. They do things all over the globe, and they truly are just a great organization that gives a lot of food to people in need. And I've looked up their stuff on Charity Navigator, and they are one of the good, highly rated ones where a lot of the money that they get in actually goes towards helping people and not things like advertising and overhead costs and stuff like that. If you want to learn more about the work that they're doing, you can go to wck.org. And I am happy to finally have this charitable thing in, because then I can still talk about some of the stuff that's going on, have some sort of a way to do it that doesn't feel like I'm shoehorning it into a conversation in a podcast that I know some people use for escapism and stuff like that. So I feel like this is a good way to kind of keep things good in both directions for what people are hoping that they hear from me and the show. As far as something specific to this episode, after the break, there's going to be a part where I talk about an NBA player posting a highlight reel to Creed's Can You Take Me Higher? I meant to say that it was to Stained's Now That We're Here, So Far Away, which feel like emotionally the same song to me. So I hope you would understand why I got those two confused, but I just wanted to get the record correct there. I'm going to put the link to that particular video in the notes of this episode so you can find that link more easily. Now, of course, let's take some time to thank the folks who are supporting the show on Patreon. I really do appreciate it. It's so fantastic. It's cool to see new people in the mix, getting those sweet, sweet bonus things, whether that is the Q&As that I do monthly, which I just did, or the director's commentaries that I post every now and then, which I just did, or the bonus episodes, which I post every month, which I just did an episode doing old live show Q&A questions that I never got to in the actual shows. So there's lots of fun stuff happening at the Patreon. And of course, you also get the ad-free early release episodes. So let's give a shout out to the folks who have joined most recently. So shout out to our newest God tier patron, Alex Wallever, and shout out to our newest demigod tier patrons, Bella Seville, Scout, and then in parentheses, yes, it's my real name, Olutavin Akinfenwa, Megan Thornton, Fallon's Fixes, Arwen Wen, Catriona Rod, and Britta Peterson. And also a name correction for Trish Henry Green. Thank you all so much for your support. May Dionysus, because it's a drink. May one of the gods bless you that if you're ever making a tea that has a lot of different spices and stuff, that you hit all of the percentages correctly. I've been really trying to craft my chai masala game, and I'm feeling like I'm getting there, but I would like a little bit of divine intervention sometimes. If you're all caught up on the News Olympian and you're looking for a new podcast to listen to, you're in luck, because I make a bunch of those. And something I used to make, and I still post episodes from time to time, is Potterless. Potterless is similar in structure to the News Olympian, but I did it for the Harry Potter books. I did it before making the News Olympian. I never read those books as a kid as well. So it's me going through that with some Harry Potter super fans. We did the books, we did the movies. We then did a bunch of fan-made stuff, especially after J.K. Rowling became a publicly terrible person. So there's a whole bunch of episodes. There's over 200. So if you are really looking for something to marathon through, Potterless is there for you. And I'm very biased, but I think it's good. You can listen to it wherever you get your podcasts by searching for Potterless or by going to our website, potterlesspodcast.com. Now, unless you are listening on Patreon, where you get access to ad-free episodes, you will hear words from a few sponsors who make it feasible for me to be a full-time podcaster. Some of those ads will be read by me. Others of them won't be. The ones that aren't read by me are inserted locally. So if you live in Argentina, don't be surprised if you hear an ad in Spanish. But once those ads are complete, we'll get back into this episode of the News Olympian. And we're back, and we're here for chapter 12. It's also called Leo, but we'll name it something different by the end. So this one opens with something that was very, very personal to me. Quote, the woods weren't like any place he'd been before. Leo had been raised in a North Houston apartment complex. The wildest things he'd ever seen were that rattlesnake in the cow pasture and his Aunt Rosa in her nightgown. Oh, okay. Until he was sent to wilderness school. So, North Houston.
My first thought was, where on earth did you go? Like, did you go to Conroe for this cow pasture?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, how north of Houston? How north is north? Because I spent 10 years in Spring, Texas, which is North Houston. But like, we're not getting rattlesnakes in North Houston. You can get snakes. I think you get rattlesnakes in like the Woodlands where Kelly's parents live. I know that a rattlesnake, at least 2 have been found in Kelly's backyard. So, and that's even more north. So it could be the Woodlands, but to be in the Woodlands and then say that the woods were nothing like the Woodlands feels like...
I was like, this feels like you didn't actually travel through Houston.
Yeah, like, Uncle Rick is from San Antonio, so I don't know that he's ever, like, gone to North Houston. And also, like, North Houston apartment complex, like, it's very suburban up in North Houston. They are making more and more of them, so I wonder how north we have to go.
Yeah, my first thought, because if you're in, like, the area, like, not the Heights, but, like, where 290 kind of goes and the Heights is below that, whatever's on top of that is
like
something
the energy
else.
Corridor?
No, that's like west. I'm thinking more like Aldine.
Oh, Aldine. Okay, yeah,
kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. So I was like, maybe they were living in up there. Maybe it was Acres Homes or something. Like,
yeah, okay.
I was like, maybe it's one of those. But my first thought was, I was like, wow, you'd have to drive kind of far to get to a cow pasture, at least from North Houston. Like,
right.
They're not easily seen. So I was like, he's got to be in Tomball.
I was going to just say Tomball. Oh my God.
Tia Kaida drove him all the way to Tomball.
Yeah. Because that's like close enough. Like that's in Spring Woodlands area. Jimmy Butler famously from Tomball. Yeah. Okay. Canonically, Leo Valdez from Tomball. I love it. Okay. Now that we've finished Northwest Houston corner and everyone is like, get onto the book. Shut up. But anyway, everybody should go to Taqueria Ruby number 5. If you're going to Northeast.
Oh my gosh. That place is so good.
You went? You've been?
Yes.
God,
yes.
It slaps so
I lived
hard.
in Houston for so I'm from New Orleans originally, but I moved to Houston after Katrina. So I was living there from 2005 until early last year. Mm-hmm. So I spent quite a bit of time there.
Did you go because I recommended it, or did you go independent of me?
Independent.
That's
independent.
Yes, I knew I liked
so
you.
Good.
God,
it's so
yes.
good.
It's so good.
I still, to this day, even though I live in California now, I still maintain of all the states that touch Mexico, to me, Texas has the best Mexican food.
You can't touch it. You absolutely can't touch it.
It's so delicious.
I've had really good Mexican food in Arizona. There's a really good place in Phoenix called La Santa Cima. If you're in Phoenix, everybody go. They're really good, but man, Taqueria Ruby number 5, which I think has like changed its name technically on Google Maps. It might be Taqueria Ruby number 1 or just like Taqueria Ruby. They made a brick and mortar thing, but you have to go to the taco truck. It's parked under Huffmeister. You have to go. They're not paying
me. Love it.
But it's so good.
They're going to get a sudden influx of people and they'll be like, what is going on?
There's been at least 10 people who have emailed me that have been like, yo, I went there and it really does slap. Like, so I am so happy to give them business. Anyway, Percy Jackson. Now, he said that these woods were like nothing he'd ever seen until he went to the wilderness school. But even the wilderness school was a desert. So he's incredibly out of his element. And he gets deep enough into the woods where no one can see him. Then he casts dancing flame. No, he makes like fire come out on his fingertips so that he can see. And even doing this little tiny cantrip basically makes him feel guilty. He continues. He's looking for dragon clues and he sees nothing aside from a large furry shape that feels like it could be a wolf or a bear, but it retreats from Leo's fire as he gets closer, which he is completely fine with. He then comes up on the first dragon trap, a 100-foot wide ditch lined with boulders. There's a hot tub-sized vat in the middle filled with Tabasco and motor oil, and it has a fan above it wafting the fumes. And this makes Leo wonder if metal dragons can even smell, and that is a great question, and I love when Rick introduces something and then immediately questions its validity. It's such a good, humble trait of his.
Yeah, my first thought was Louisiana representation. Tabasco hot sauce is from, and I also have a little bit of a family loyalty because apparently my great-grandparents used to like pick peppers for the Tabasco people and kept Tabasco sauce like in the house as just a personal preference.
Okay.
So I was just like, yay. Now my second thought was, does motor oil smell like gasoline? Because if so, the smell might not be that crazy. Might not be so wild, you know? But then my next thought was, why hot sauce and motor oil?
They had said earlier that those were the two things that the dragon liked. They mentioned that in Cabin 9 when they're talking to him. I don't know how they figured out that it liked hot sauce.
That's funny. I would love to know what that story was of how someone figured out. I think he likes spicy stuff.
Yeah, I'm going to write that down on my list of things that come up in the book, but we don't know the story.
Could we get this dragon on an episode of Hot Ones?
Oh, man. You know who would be really bad or good because I'd be so bad on an episode of Hot Ones? Me. I do not do well with hot sauce. I would die. I would absolutely die. I had thought one time of thinking, because I try to do like fun streams on the Patreon every quarter to, just keep it fun and give something to the folks. Like we did the movie streams and we did that thing where we read the original script of the Lightning Thief movie. And I was trying to think, what could I do? And I was like, I could do Hot Ones once. And then I thought more about it and I was like, this will hurt for like 3 days. I don't know if I want to do this.
It's so like, I love watching the episodes of Hot Ones where it's the people who like want to fight the host because they're like, I can't believe you did this.
Yeah.
There's I think it's the Idris Elba one where he was like, I want to fight the camera. I want to fight everybody. Everything is so hot. I can't take it.
I would highly recommend everyone watch the Conan O'Brien one. It's really good. And when people go unhinged, you love to see it. You love to see it.
Gordon Ramsay, that's another good one too.
God, that's the thing. He's such a little baby. Like that's
he
what I would
couldn't even
be.
make it. He couldn't make it.
God, he was taking tiny little bites. Jeff Goldblum taking the tiniest little like nibbles to get by.
Oh no, absolutely not. You gotta really go for it.
If I was gonna do it, I would commit. I would have a bad time. So now people are probably gonna be like, I'll join the Patreon if you do it. So like, yeah, do it. I'll do it for money. Obviously, I'll do it for money.
And I'll have so much milk and so much Tums.
I got we do have a lot of leftover Tums.
There you go. You're set.
I'll be
You're
okay.
all good.
I got a lot of milk. Yeah. And I got a $5.29 to start putting money into. So let's make it happen. Okay. Anyway, Percy Jackson. Leo can sense the trap. Even though he can't see it, he can kind of sense the mechanisms that would cause a bronze net to snatch the dragon if it stepped on the depression. However, it's light enough for Leo to step on it since it's rigged for a giant dragon. So he makes his way toward the vat. The fumes are pretty strong, reminding him of a time, quote, when Tia Kaida, and then in parentheses, Hera, whatever, made him chop jalapenos and the juice got in his eyes. And that does suck. That
it hurts so bad.
Not good. You got to always remember to wash your hands. If you got to use gloves. But man, that can be tough. Leo then, as the narrator continues, quote, but of course she'd been like, endure it, little hero. The Aztecs of your mother's homeland used to punish bad children by holding them over a fire filled with chili peppers. They raised many heroes that way. And I like imagining that she didn't actually say this, but this is him just like coming up with something that sounds like something she would have said. That's the truth I want to live in.
Oh, yeah. I also like to imagine that there's a world where she might have foresaw the Tabasco and motor oil situation. And she's like, I'm preparing you for this. It's going to smell like robotic hot wings, but trust me,
you need this.
It's for your own good.
Leo, as narrator, continues, a total psycho, that lady. Leo was so glad he was on a quest to rescue her. And this is where I wrote in my notes. Narrator Leo is undeniably the best of the three. Like, I still have enjoyed
He's certainly the funniest.
Thing. Yes.
He is certainly the funniest.
That's what I should say. He's my favorite. Like, I love the humor in it, and it reminds me of Percy being the sassy, funny narrator. So I truly do look forward to the Leo chapters because they're just so funny. They're so funny. Leo is looking for a release mechanism, but he can't find it. He begins to think that there might not be one, but then he hears rumbling in the woods. He thinks he has some time. Surely it's far away, but then he hears a metallic snort, and just 50 feet from him at the edge of the pit, he sees two red eyes staring at him, and he can tell that the beast is looking at his flame hand, so he tries to extinguish it, but it's too late. He can still make out the shape of the dragon, and here's how he describes it. Quote, it was about 60 feet long, snout to tail, its body made of interlocking bronze plates, its claws were the size of butcher knives, and its mouth was lined with hundreds of dagger-sharp metal teeth. Steam came out of its nostrils. It snarled like a chainsaw cutting through a tree. It could have bitten Leo in half easy or stomped him flat. It was the most beautiful thing he'd ever seen, except for one problem that completely ruined Leo's plan. Rick is so good at describing things that are inhuman, whether it's monsters we're terrified of or magical beasts that become our friends, or I guess in this case, both. Man, he has such a knack for it. What a description.
That's a perfect description. One of the things I really love about him is a lot of the imagery that he uses. Like, he's really big on like immersing you kind of in the moment. And I feel like all of the things he's using to describe this dragon, they build on one another. So first it's you hear something stomping and there's steam. Then there's glowing red eyes. Then now you see its full body with all of its things. I also love how it says like it just completely ruined Leo's plan. Like, he's looking at all this and he's not feeling terrified. He's just like, bummer. He doesn't have wings.
Leo, always thinking
the same way that mystery sleepy lady was like, remember this day when you decide if you want to take this quest. And he's like, well, I do remember it, and I'm coming after you. And I just love how he is so like, yeah, I see the danger, I don't care, let's get it done.
And you want to talk about Leo being Annabeth coded, him being most upset that his plan isn't working? That's the most Annabeth thing I've ever heard of.
Very
Come
Annabeth.
On. So Leo says, you don't have wings. The dragon tilts its head in confusion as if it's wondering why Leo isn't running away yet. Leo tries to gas it up with compliments while still saying that it should have wings. The dragon approaches Leo, even more confused, and Leo shouts, no, and then alerts the dragon that it's a trap. And then I'm realizing now, okay. He is trying to save the dragon. That's what's going on here. Because at first when he was trying to undo the traps, I'm like, why is he trying to undo the traps? Like, does he want the net from it to do something else with it? What's going on? Now it all makes sense. The dragon breathes fire onto Leo and he withstands it. It's the most he's ever done. It stings a bit, but he's okay, as are his clothes. He doesn't understand how that happened, but he's thankful regardless because he likes his jacket and he didn't want to be without pants. And again, Rick is great here with kind of calling out some of his things that don't make sense, but it does like canonically make sense with how the PJO world has worked. Clothes kind of follow the powers. Percy's clothes don't get wet. Leo's clothes are fine. Tyson, I also think maybe his clothes are okay when the Colgus Bull kind of snorted at him, or maybe I'm confusing it with the movie, but regardless, this kind of does track, but I still respect Rick for kind of pointing out, yeah, that's kind of silly. We've got Hulk pants rules going on here, but we're just going to roll with it.
Hulk pants rules. I actually love that. I wonder if it's like a thing of, this is slightly unrelated, but in Ghosts, there's a ghost whose power is that any of the other ghosts can touch something that she has as long as she's touching it. Mm-hmm. So like she has butterscotch candies in her purse because when she died, she had her purse with her. So she's the only one who can fully touch and taste the butterscotch candies. But the other ghosts are like desperate. And she's like, yeah, you can taste it. But like, it just has to be touching my fingertips when you are. And that just made me think about this, that maybe like the way the fire works is as long as Leo is touching the clothes, it's not going to burn him or something.
Amazing.
I would love to just get into the lore about that, because how does this power work exactly?
Yeah, it's a fun one. I think the true answer is just we can't have naked underage children in the book.
Oh, of course. Of course. That's the easiest one.
But now we need the Greek mythological thing, you know?
Yeah.
Like maybe it's like the skin cells kind of like get it, you know?
We're going to find out that he dipped the clothes in the river Styx before he came out. That's one of the things Tia Kaida did for him.
Maybe it's like the laundry at Camp Half-Blood, that it's not just water or detergent
it's
or whatever.
Styx water.
Yeah.
It's river Styx water to keep and propel all of the dangers away.
The dragon is even more confused, Leo thinking it's wondering, quote, why no crispy critter? And Leo tries to explain to it that the dragon cannot burn him. Leo then explains to the dragon that Cabin 9 thinks it's broken and must be scrapped. But Leo thinks, I can try to fix you, going all Coldplay on him. The dragon, not listening like a doofus, charges and sets off the trap. They both get caught in the net. Leo is doused in the vat juice. The dragon panics and spews fire everywhere, oil and sauce is burning all over them. Leo is still fine, but he yells for the dragon to stop. It won't stop. So he works his way free from the net and he tries to explain what the dragon is doing will alert the campers of its position, so it's not doing them any favors. It will guarantee the dragon's destruction. The dragon then begins to seem like it's listening. Leo tells it to trust him, and then he gets to work. It takes almost an hour, but he finds the control panel. A dryad nearby puts out flames in her branches and is furious, and when she catches Leo looking at her, gives him a rude gesture and poofs away. He does clarify as the narrator that it's a rude gesture he thinks, so it's not just a middle finger. He thinks it's like a specific like dryad middle finger, which I wonder what that looks like.
I just wonder if it's like, maybe she gave him like the peace sign, but it was aggressive.
Ooh, maybe it's like upside down peace sign or something.
Yeah, and he's like, that's not good.
Whatever it is, that's not good. Leo gets back to work and the machinery just makes sense to him. He identifies the problem, a corroded control disc. And man, I hate when my control disc gets corroded. That's the worst. So I'm glad he is fixing this for the dragon. The disc regulates the dragon's higher reasoning circuits, and since Leo has no replacement, he has to remove it and then clean it, but the more he cleans, the more worried he becomes because he realizes the severity of the damage done to it. Some circuits are beyond repair, and he thinks that he could improve them but not fix them. He has no clue how to make a new disc, so that's out of the question, so he works as quickly as he can because he fears the disc being out too long will ruin it, so he cleans it as much as he can and cleans as much as he can around the area where it was, reinserts the disc, and asks the dragon if that worked. And the dragon makes a sound like a high-speed drill, opens its mouth, and all its teeth begin rotating. Leo takes that as a yes, so he decides to free the dragon from the net, and 30 minutes later, the dragon is free and shoots off fire into the sky in celebration.
I love it.
It's great. What a fun visual. Leo scolds it for being a show-off and then decides to name it Festus, which I don't know why, but that's great. And the only other Festus I know is Festus Ezeli of the Golden State Warriors. And he was this like backup center who the thing I will always remember of him is when he, like, I don't know if he got traded or retired. He posted like a thank you Golden State Warriors video on Twitter. I think he got traded or signed with a different team, but it uploaded in really bad resolution. And it was a highlight reel of him to Can You Take Me Higher by Creed. And it's just like one of the funniest NBA things that's ever happened. And now I will think of that every time I think of the Bronze Dragon.
I love that. I was just sitting here like, you need a name, Festus. I was like, what? If I had to name this dragon, I I have a thing where I think it's really funny when like people's pets have absurdly human names.
Yep,
like,
I love that.
I would name this dragon Clarence and call
Clarence
it a day.
is good. Yeah, the two pet names I really
Robbie.
enjoy are, just like normal, boring kind of name, or name your pet a different animal. Like a cat named Moose. Yeah, sign me up. Sign me up for that.
I love that.
Mhm,
I love
mhm.
that.
If we ever did get a cat, we would name it Pomplamoose and then call it Moose for short, but we're never getting a cat because we have a baby.
Oh, gosh.
We're not adding extra stress.
I actually found out that there's a breed of hypoallergenic cat called a La Perm cat.
Ooh,
And I said, if I ever got a La Perm cat, La Perm is going to be a part of its name.
that's good.
And I'm going to name it a basic human name, Clarence La Perm.
And then
the
that could go
cat.
along with the other cat that you talked about. I don't know if it was Potteros or the New Olympian where you said you would have Sir Boots with the fur.
Yes. Yes.
I only just realized, like maybe a couple weeks ago, that in that song, in Low,
Mhm.
Apple Bottom Jeans, Boots with the Fur, the fur is not boots that have fur on them. It's she's wearing boots and then a fur jacket. I was today
I never
years
thought
old.
that. I thought furry
I thought it was
boots.
furry boots, but no, it's boots and then she's wearing a fur jacket.
See, my first thought is, why would she wear a fur jacket in the club
Because
while
to show
dancing?
off her opulence, money.
You know what? You're onto something. You're onto something.
But I always thought, I was like, why is he so hype about her Uggs? I don't get it.
If I ever corner Flo Rida in an elevator, I'll ask him that question.
Yes. Hello, Mr. Florida. Can you tell me?
Reveal your secrets.
Anyway, Percy Jackson. So Leo tells Festus that his lack of wings is still a problem. Festus gestures for Leo to hop on. He does, and then heads deeper into the woods. Leo can't tell for how long they are traveling, but they reach a huge cliff about 100 feet tall, and the dragon points at it. Leo puts his hands on the cliff, and his fingers smolder, and lines of fire reveal a giant door. The dragon enters, as does Leo. The door closes behind them, and then Leo has flashbacks to the machine shop, and he worries about being trapped inside. Yeah, if I walked into like a cave type thing, and the door closed, I'd freak the hell out. So I totally get it.
I'd be concerned. I'd be a little concerned.
Yeah.
You know?
He asks Festus what this place is, and this is the description. Quote, the cave was the size of an airplane hangar with endless work tables and storage cages, rows of garage-sized doors along either wall, and staircases that led up to a network of catwalks high above. Equipment was everywhere, hydraulic lifts, welding torches, hazard suits, air spades, forklifts, plus something that looked suspiciously like a nuclear reaction chamber. Bulletin boards were covered with tattered, faded blueprints, and weapons, armor, shields, war supplies all over the place. A lot of them only partially finished. Again, Rick is also good at this, setting the scene. He's so good. I love his descriptions. Now, there's also a banner above that reads in Greek, but Leo can just instinctively understand it, and it says Bunker 9. Leo wonders if that has anything to do with Cabin 9 or if there's a group of 9 people. Festus looks very much at home, and Leo realizes that he probably is home. This is likely where he was built. Leo can tell this place has been long abandoned with half-finished projects, and he wonders why. He then sees a tattered map on the wall, and it's dated 1864. And I was wondering, was that the year when they said, like, that's the last time they had a fire demigod? That feels like it. But I'd have to go back, but I think that's what it was.
I think so. And my other thought too was, and like, I don't remember if this is something they bring up in this book, so I won't say too much, but I wonder if maybe there was a certain event that forced people to leave their workshop in 1864 in upstate New York. Wonder what that could have been about.
I was going to say, I don't know enough about New York 1800s history, but I'll have to see if we don't get into it, if it's not too spoilery. But then Leo sees a blueprint for a flying ship, and underneath it is written, like in handwriting, prophecy? Unclear. Flight? And the most bonkers thing is that this blueprint looks exactly like Leo's drawing of the flying ship. It's got a dragon head mast and all, and Leo notes to Festus that it looks just like him, which Leo thinks is spooky. Leo begins to take the blueprint, but the paper starts to disintegrate, so he leaves it in place because he doesn't want to ruin it. He looks around for other clues about this blueprint, but finds no parts or anything like that. Festus nudges a tool belt towards Leo and then switches his eyes into spotlight mode and then looks at the ceiling. And then we get this quote: Leo looked up to where the spotlights were pointing and yelped when he recognized the shapes hanging above them in the darkness. Festus, he said in a small voice, we've got work to do, which is great and very Fast and Furious coded. But I'm thinking, my guess here is that those parts are probably for the rest of the ship, and maybe they were building the ship. They started to build the dragon portion first. They finished Festus, then they were going to do all the other assembly type stuff. but then something happened in 1864 or whatever, and it was unfinished. So I think it's like all the parts are up there and he just needs to like assemble it. So that's what I'm thinking.
I love to imagine that as soon as he says we've got work to do, we hear like the CSI Miami theme song.
Yeah, definitely. We've got work to do. Yeah! 100%. Thank you for bringing that up. I should have thought of that. Thank you. But yes, that is the end of chapter 12, which I have given the title, which I'm very proud of. I get lost in the sauce.
Oh, you know what? I love this. I don't have any notes.
Okay.
I don't have any notes. I got lost in the sauce. I think that is perfect.
It's pretty good. So that is chapter 12. Thank you for the compliment on Lost in the Sauce. And thank you for joining for chapters 11 and 12.
Yes.
This has been a really fun episode. Jania, thank you so much for joining.
Of
if people want to find you
course.
doing anything, is there anything you want to shout out to the folks at home?
I just kind of am in my book nerd era. So occasionally I tweet about the books that I'm reading, but I'm on Twitter, I guess X,
Twitter.
whatever. But it's the lady_Artemis. And yeah, I just kind of like, I'm just chilling. I'm just crafting and reading and doing lots of things that people do when they are approaching the age of 30. So
I would say Jania is a very good Twitter follow. I appreciate it. And I think everyone should go and follow Jania on Twitter as well. And I also am never going to call it X never because I don't want Elon to get any satisfaction.
it doesn't feel the same. Like,
No, it's gross. It's
you
just,
can't X something. Like,
no, you can't. It's
to
disgusting.
tweet is a noun and a
Yes,
verb. And
it is a thing. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Jania, thank you so much for joining. Listeners, thank you for listening. And until next time, when we figure out what's going on, I guess it's Jason chapter, so we figure out what's going on with Jason. Until then, I'll pursue you later. Hello, thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Newest Olympian. This podcast is created, hosted, and produced by me, Mike Schubert. I also run the social media and the website. Our editor is Sherry Guo. The music is by Bettina Campamontes and Brandon Google, and the art is by Jessica E. Boyd. If you can't get enough of the podcast, you can get involved in a couple of different ways. First, you can support us on Patreon, where you get bonus content. You can go to thenewestolympian.com/Patreon. You can also find us on social media. We're at Newest Olympian on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. You can go to our website, thenewestolympian.com, to learn more about the show. You can check out live shows that we've got coming near you at thenewestolympian.com/live. You can check out our merch page at thenewestolympian.com/merch. That's also where the TNO coffee lives. And for community stuff, we have a subreddit where you can chat with folks, reddit.com/r/thenewestolympian. And we also have the Discord, which is accessible to all folks on Patreon. Speaking of the Patreon, I want to give a shout out to our folks producing at the highest tier, our producer level patrons. Shout out to Kelsey Gillespie, the Damn Steam Nuggets, Vicky Garcia, Veronica Bartova, Frida Vikstrom, Megan Moon, Craig McRoberts, Taylor Payne, Sabrina Balsiger, Boney Pony, Holly Burge, Nikki Harris, Tatiana Schmidt, Sandra Rose, Josh Sayer, Josh Wilkie, Abby Ryan, Ashton Gabrielson, Marco Redhouse, Sam Reeby, Riley Giddes, Mrs. O'Leary, Milo Kim, Sand Kopf, Julia Kendall Rike, John Drillsma, Rayla Matthews, Sky Mallory, Persasabeth, Aiden Parziani, King Bastion, One Damn Distraction coming up, Ginger Spursboy, A Cup of Solace, Meg Roy, Bradimus Prime, Skylar Sisters, Scott Sheldon, Sophie, Natanya Page, Ann M. Thayer Cohen, Finley McLeod, Sarah Elise Arnson, Bella, Hayden Neal, Percy Jackson, and Han Haley Hingelheimer Schmidt. If you want to help out the show in a non-monetary way, word of mouth helps the show so much. Whether you post about the show on social media or you reach out to someone directly, someone who you know is a big Percy Jackson fan, or someone you've been trying to convince to get into the Percy Jackson books, saying, hey, there's this podcast, it's called The Newest Olympian, it's really good, you should check it out. Also, you could leave the show a rating and review on whatever podcasting app you're using. Whatever you do to spread the word of the show really does help. I'm appreciative to anyone who has done it in the past, and I'm appreciative to anyone who will do it in the future. But I'm just so thankful that you tuned into this episode, and I hope you tune in to our next episode, where we'll be joined by Joel Rochester to discuss chapters 13 and 14 of The Lost Hero. But until then, I'll pursue you later. Hey everyone, how's it going? It's me, ASMR Mix. So I'm coming to you from my kitchen right now because I'm doing the production work for the episode. So, double checking the edit, mixing, mastering, putting in the intro and the outro, stuff like that. And I wanted a snack while I did that work. So I am boiling up some water so I can make some edamame. And I believe that the water is just about ready. I can hear it at least simmering, maybe boiling. So I was just going to take the lid off of the pot and put the phone near the pot. And so you can hear that for this ASMR Mix segment. Thank you so much for listening.